The cameras were rolling, the spotlight was blazing, but Ethan Walsh had been living the biggest lie of his Hollywood career. For 2 years, he'd walked red carpets alone, while his black wife and 6-year-old stepdaughter waited at home in the shadows, hidden like a shameful secret he couldn't afford to reveal. Tonight, everything would change when Maya Brooks decided she was done being invisible, crashing his movie premiere with little Nia by her side, forcing him to choose between his carefully crafted image and the family he claimed to love. What happened next would either destroy his rising career or prove that some things are worth more than fame and fortune. But when a viral video with the wrong caption turns their moment of courage into a scandal that threatens everything they've built, Ethan will learn that loving someone publicly comes with a price he never imagined paying. The question isn't whether he can survive the fallout, it's whether his marriage can survive the truth about why he kept them hidden in the first place. If you're watching this story unfold, hit subscribe and tell me what city you're watching from, because this journey of love, courage, and redemption is about to get very real. The camera flashes hit like lightning. Ethan Walsh stood on the red carpet outside the Midtown Theater, his smile practiced and perfect. He posed with his co-stars, their arms linked, everyone gleaming under the bright lights. The movie premiere was everything his publicist Sloan had planned. Clean, safe, image perfect. But nothing about tonight felt right. Ethan's black tuxedo was sharp, his hair styled just so. The photographers shouted his name from behind the barriers. "Ethan, over here, give us a smile." He turned left, then right, his movements smooth like a dance he'd learned by heart. 3 months. That's how long he'd been doing this, walking red carpets alone while his wife sat at home with her daughter. 3 months of pretending Maya didn't exist. 3 months of letting the world think he was single. His stomach twisted every time. "Mr. Walsh," a reporter thrust a microphone toward him. "Tell us about your love life. Are you dating anyone special?" Ethan's smile faltered for just a second. The same question, every event, the same lie he was supposed to tell. "I'm focused on my work right now," he said, the words tasting like ash. The crowd behind the barriers pressed forward. Fans held up phones, recording everything. Security guards kept them back, but their voices carried over the noise. "We love you, Ethan." A teenage girl waved a poster with his face on it. Sloan appeared at his elbow, her phone already buzzing. 5 more minutes, she whispered. "Then we move inside for the cocktail hour." Ethan nodded, but couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The air felt different, electric, like before a storm. That's when he saw them. At the far end of the barrier, past the screaming fans and flashing cameras, stood Maya. Her dark skin glowed under the lights, her natural hair swept back in an elegant bun. She wore a simple but beautiful navy dress that hugged her curves just right. But it wasn't her beauty that stopped Ethan's heart. It was the little girl beside her. 6-year-old Nia held Maya's hand tight, her eyes wide as she took in all the lights and noise. Her curly hair bounced as she turned her head this way and that, trying to see everything at once. She wore a yellow dress that made her look like sunshine. Ethan's chest went tight. They weren't supposed to be here. This wasn't the plan. Maya had never come to any of his events. She'd said she understood why he needed to keep his private life private. She'd been patient while he built his career. But patience, Ethan realized as he stared at his wife and stepdaughter, had limits. Maya's eyes found his across the crowd. Even from this distance, he could see her calm determination. She wasn't angry or desperate. She wasn't making a scene. She was simply there, standing straight and proud, with Nia's small hand in hers. The security guard at their section of the barrier looked confused. He spoke into his radio, glancing between Maya and the main event area. Other people in the crowd started to notice. Whispers spread like ripples in a pond. "Who's that woman? Is that his girlfriend? She's got a kid with her." Ethan's feet moved before his brain caught up. He walked away from the photographers, ignoring their calls for more pictures. Each step toward Maya felt like walking through water, but he didn't stop. "Ethan!" Sloane's voice cut through the noise behind him. "Where are you going?" He didn't answer. He couldn't take his eyes off Maya's face as he got closer. She was scared he could see it in the tiny line between her eyebrows, but she wasn't backing down. The security guard held up his hand as Ethan approached. "Sir, I need to ask these ladies to—" "She's my wife," Ethan said quietly. The words felt strange and wonderful in his mouth. True words, after months of lies. "This is my family." The guard's face went blank with surprise. Behind Ethan, the crowd of reporters and photographers had gone silent. Even the fans stopped screaming. Everyone was watching. Maya stepped closer to the barrier. "Hello," she said softly. Her voice was steady, but Ethan could hear the slight tremor underneath. Beside her, Nia pressed against her mother's leg, suddenly shy with all eyes on them. "Maya," Ethan's voice cracked on her name. "What are you doing here? What I should have done months ago." Maya's brown eyes met his without wavering. "I'm standing next to my husband." The silence stretched between them. Ethan was aware of hundreds of people watching, waiting. Phones pointed in their direction, camera flashes going off like fireworks. His whole career balanced on what he did next. He looked down at Nia, the little girl who called him Ethan but drew pictures of him as part of their family. The child who saved him a spot on the couch every movie night, who made him pancakes that looked like cats because she knew they made him laugh. Nia looked up at him with those big, trusting eyes. "Hi, Ethan," she whispered. Something inside his chest cracked wide open. Ethan stepped forward and gently lifted Nia over the barrier. She giggled as he settled her on his hip, her yellow dress bright against his dark tuxedo. She wasn't heavy, but she felt like everything important in the world. "There's my sunshine," he murmured against her ear. The photographers went crazy. Cameras clicked and flashed like a lightning storm. Reporters shouted questions all at once, their voices blending into noise. But Ethan only had eyes for Maya. He reached out his free hand to her. She stared at it for a heartbeat, then took it. Her fingers were warm and familiar in his, and suddenly the chaos around them seemed to quiet. Together, they took 3 steps onto the red carpet. Just 3 steps, but it felt like crossing into a whole new world. The crowd hushed, waiting. Ethan could feel Sloane's panic from 30 feet away. He could imagine his father's phone already ringing with angry calls from sponsors. He could picture tomorrow's headlines. But all he really saw was the way Nia's face lit up as she waved at the cameras, and how Maya's shoulders relaxed for the first time in months. "Ethan," a reporter found his voice first, "can you tell us who these ladies are?" Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. The words he needed to say felt huge and scary and perfect. But before he could speak, Sloane appeared at his elbow like a magician's trick. "We need to get inside," she said through her smile. Her publicist training was showing she looked calm on the outside, but her eyes were wild. "The cocktail hour is starting." The spell broke. Reality came rushing back in. Ethan nodded and guided Maya and Nia toward the theater entrance, but he could feel all those watching eyes on their backs. The questions followed them like hungry birds. "Are you married? How long have you been together? What's the little girl's name?" Ethan kept walking, but his heart was beating so fast he felt dizzy. What had he just done? 3 steps on a red carpet, and his whole carefully planned image was probably in pieces. But as they reached the theater doors, Nia leaned her head against his shoulder and whispered, "That was fun, Daddy." She'd never called him that before. Ethan's steps faltered. He looked at Maya, whose eyes were suddenly bright with tears. "She's been practicing," Maya said quietly, in case she ever got the chance to say it out loud. The theater lobby was all soft lighting and quiet music. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting gentle shadows on the marble floors. People in fancy clothes held wine glasses and spoke in low voices. It should have been peaceful after the chaos outside, but Ethan felt like he was drowning. Sloane appeared beside them the moment they stepped inside. Her smile was bright and sharp as a knife. "That was unexpected," she said, her voice tight with control. Nia was still in Ethan's arms, looking around at all the sparkly lights with wonder. Maya stood close enough that her arm brushed his, but Ethan could feel the distance growing between them with every second. "We need to talk," Sloane said, her eyes flicking to Maya. "Now." "Later," Ethan said. He wasn't ready to let go of this feeling yet. The rightness of having his family beside him, the way Nia's small hand rested on his shoulder, like she belonged there. But Sloane wasn't backing down. "The press is going crazy out there. We didn't rehearse this. We don't have talking points. We need to control the story before it controls us." Maya's posture went stiff. Ethan recognized that look. It was the same one she got when someone at the store assumed she was the babysitter instead of Nia's mom, quiet and dignified, but burning underneath. "Control the story?" Maya repeated softly. "It's not personal," Sloane said quickly. "It's just business. Image management. Surely you understand." "No more hiding," Ethan said, cutting her off. The words came out stronger than he felt inside. I'm done pretending my family doesn't exist. Maya turned to look at him then. Really look at him, like she was seeing something she hadn't expected. Then name us, she said simply. The challenge hung in the air between them. Name us. Don't just say, no more hiding. Use the words. Say, wife. Say, daughter. Ethan felt the weight of everyone's eyes on him. Sloane's careful panic, Maya's patient hope, Naya's innocent trust. Across the lobby, he could see other actors and industry people pretending not to stare while they whispered to each other. Soon, he said finally. I promise I'll make a proper statement soon. Maya's face didn't change, but something in her eyes went cool. Naya needs truth now, she said quietly. Not soon, now. A theater volunteer approached them with a gentle smile. Excuse me, is this your daughter? There's a quieter lounge upstairs where she might be more comfortable. We have juice boxes and coloring books. Nia perked up at the mention of coloring books. She looked between Ethan and Maya, suddenly aware that the grown-ups were having one of their serious conversations. Can I go color? She asked Maya. Maya hesitated, then nodded. Stay with the nice lady, okay? We'll be right here. Ethan set Nia down carefully, already missing her weight in his arms. She took the volunteer's offered hand and waved back at them as they headed toward the stairs. The moment she was gone, the space between Ethan and Maya felt enormous. This is what I was afraid of, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. You're already looking for ways to put us back in the box. That's not, Ethan started, but Maya held up her hand. 3 months, Ethan. 3 months I've watched you walk red carpets alone. 3 months of Nia asking why she can't come see your movies with everyone else. 3 months of being your dirty little secret. You're not a secret, Ethan said desperately. You're my wife. You're everything to me. Then why won't you say it? The question hit him like a physical blow, because he was scared, because his father had spent years building this image for him, because Sloane had contracts and clauses and reasons why revealing his marriage could hurt his career, because loving Maya and Nia was the easiest thing in the world, but protecting them from the ugliness that came with fame felt impossible. But how could he explain all of that when she was looking at him like her heart was breaking? Before he could find the words, a reporter appeared at his elbow. Ethan recognized him, Tom, from Entertainment Weekly. Usually friendly, but always hunting for a story. Ethan, great to see you. Listen, I hate to bother you, but everyone's asking about the ladies you walked in with. Can you give us anything? Just a quick comment? Ethan's mouth went dry. This was it. The moment he'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. He could feel Maya watching him, waiting to see what he would choose. His eyes found Sloane across the lobby. She was shaking her head slightly, her expression desperate. Ethan started, then stopped. The words felt stuck in his throat like stones. Tom waited patiently, his recorder held between them. I'll make a statement later, Ethan said finally. Tonight's about the film. Tom nodded and walked away, but the damage was done. Ethan could feel Maya's disappointment like a cold wind. A statement, she repeated flatly. Maya, you have to understand the position I'm in. No, Maya said quietly. I understand perfectly. She turned and headed for the stairs, going to find Nia. Ethan watched her go, his chest tight with panic. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to happen. She was supposed to understand. They were supposed to figure this out together. But as Maya disappeared up the stairs without looking back, Ethan realized that understanding had limits too. Just like patience, the movie screening was torture. Ethan sat in the back row of the theater between Maya and Nia, trying to focus on the film he'd worked so hard to make. But all he could think about were the whispers around them, the way people kept turning to look, the phones that kept appearing and disappearing in the darkness. Nia was enchanted by the big screen and the surround sound. She whispered questions to Maya during the quiet parts and gasped at all the exciting scenes. Her joy should have made Ethan happy. Instead, it made his stomach twist with guilt. This was what he'd been denying her. Movie premieres and red carpets, and the simple pleasure of being proud of her stepdad's work. He'd been so worried about protecting her from the spotlight that he'd forgotten she might actually want to be part of it. Maya sat straight in her seat, her face carefully neutral as she watched the screen. She'd changed since their conversation in the lobby, gone quiet and distant, polite but cold. Ethan kept wanting to reach for her hand, but something in her posture warned him away. When the credits started rolling and the lights came up, the theater erupted in applause. Ethan stood with his co-stars and waved at the audience, but his smile felt like plastic. All he wanted was to get out of there, to take Maya and Naya somewhere quiet where they could talk this through. But first, he had to check his phone. The messages hit him like a punch to the gut. Missed calls from his father, texts from Sloan, email alerts from news websites, and worse, the notifications from social media. He opened Twitter with shaking hands. The video was already everywhere. Shaky phone footage of him lifting Nia onto the red carpet, taking Maya's hand, walking those 3 steps together. But it was the captions that made his blood run cold. Ethan Walsh arrives with mystery nanny and child. Who is Ethan Walsh's new family friend? Actor spotted with unidentified woman and daughter. Nanny, mystery woman, unidentified. Not wife, not family, not the truth. Maya appeared at his shoulder, reading over his arm before he could hide the screen. He watched her face change as she saw the headlines, watched her go very still the way she did when she was protecting herself from pain. Maya, he started, but she was already moving away. Excuse me, she said to the people around them, her voice perfectly polite. I need to check on my daughter. Ethan grabbed Sloane's arm as she passed. Fix this, he said, his voice rough with panic. Fix the captions. Tonight. Sloane's eyes went wide. Ethan, we need approvals for statements. Legal has to review everything. The studio. I don't care about the studio. Ethan's voice came out louder than he meant to. A few people turned to look. He lowered it to a harsh whisper. My wife is being called the nanny. Fix it. Let me make some calls, Sloane said, but she looked scared. We need to be careful how we handle this. Careful. Always careful. Ethan was so sick of being careful he could scream. His phone buzzed in his hand. His father's name flashed on the screen. Richard Walsh never called unless something was very wrong. Ethan answered on the 3rd ring. Dad, what the hell were you thinking? Richard's voice was tight with fury. I've got sponsors calling me. The studio's in panic mode. Do you have any idea what you've done? People were filing out of the theater around them, but Ethan felt frozen in place. I brought my family to a movie premiere. That's all. That's all? Richard's laugh was sharp and mean. You just cost yourself a 7-figure campaign, son. The family-friendly brands don't want controversy. They want safe. They want clean. They want what we built for you. What we built was a lie, Ethan said quietly. That lie was going to make you rich and famous. Now you need to fix this mess before it gets worse. Hold a press conference. Say she's a friend. Say the kid belongs to someone else. Say whatever you have to say to make this go away. The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone, feeling sick. Around him, the theater was almost empty now. Just a few stragglers and the cleanup crew. Maya and Nia were nowhere to be seen. He found them by the side exit, Maya's hand on Nia's shoulder as she guided her daughter toward the door. They were trying to avoid the crowd of photographers that had gathered at the main entrance, but the photographers had found them anyway. The alley should have been empty. That was the whole point of leaving through the side exit, to avoid the cameras and questions and chaos. But someone had tipped off the paparazzi, and now they were trapped. Flashes exploded in the darkness like fireworks. Reporters shouted questions from behind the camera lights. Ethan couldn't see Maya and Nia clearly, but he could hear Nia's scared whimper as the noise overwhelmed her. Ethan, who's the woman? Is that your girlfriend? What's the kid's name? Are you hiding a secret family? The questions came fast and cruel. Ethan pushed through the crowd, trying to reach Maya and Nia. When he found them, Nia was pressed against Maya's side, her small hands covering her ears. Maya had her arms around her daughter, her body curved protectively over the little girl. It's okay, baby, Maya was murmuring. We're okay. Just keep your eyes on me. But it wasn't okay. Nia was crying now, overwhelmed by the shouting and flashing lights. She was just a 6-year-old who wanted to see a movie, and now she was surrounded by strangers with cameras who were treating her like a story to be broken. Ethan's vision went red with rage. Back off, he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. She's a child. Back off. The photographers kept shooting, but their questions died down. Ethan used the moment of quiet to guide Maya and Nia toward their car. He kept his body between them and the cameras, one hand on Nia's shoulder and the other on Maya's back. Almost there, he told them quietly. Almost there. The driver saw them coming and started the engine. Ethan helped Maya and Nia into the back seat, then climbed in after them. The moment the door closed, the noise outside became muffled and distant. Nia immediately crawled into Maya's lap, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. Her small body was shaking with leftover fear and adrenaline. "I didn't like that," she whispered. "I know, sweetheart," Maya said, smoothing Nia's curly hair with gentle fingers. "I didn't like it either, but it's over now." Ethan's heart was breaking. This was exactly what he'd been trying to protect them from, the cruel side of fame. The way photographers could turn a beautiful night into a nightmare. But looking at Maya's face, he realized he'd failed to protect them anyway, because hiding them hadn't kept them safe. It had just made everything worse. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm so sorry." Maya looked at him over Nia's head. Her eyes were tired and sad, but not angry. "Not anymore." "I'm not leaving, Ethan," she said simply. "I'm asking you to stand with us." The words hit him like a revelation. She wasn't running away. She wasn't giving up on them. She was asking him to be brave enough to love them out loud. The car pulled up outside Maya's apartment building. The familiar brownstone looked warm and safe in the streetlight, so different from the chaos they'd just escaped. Ethan helped them out of the car, then knelt down to Nia's level. She was still clinging to Maya's hand, her eyes red from crying. "Hey, Sunshine," he said softly. "You were so brave tonight." "I was scared," Nia admitted. "I was scared too," Ethan said honestly. "But you know what? Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing, even when you are scared." Nia considered this seriously, the way she considered all important information. "Are you going to be brave tomorrow?" The question was innocent, but it felt like everything hung on his answer. Ethan looked up at Maya. She was watching him with careful hope, like she was afraid to believe but couldn't help herself. "Yes," Ethan said firmly. "I'm going to be brave tomorrow." He kissed Nia's forehead, breathing in the sweet smell of her strawberry shampoo. Then he stood and faced Maya. "Breakfast?" he asked quietly. "I could walk her to school tomorrow morning. With you. Together." For the first time all night, Maya smiled. A real smile that reached her eyes. "I'd like that," she said. Maya's kitchen smelled like coffee and hope. It was 6:45 inches the morning, and golden sunlight streamed through the window over the sink. Nia sat at the small round table, eating toast with strawberry jam and working on a drawing. She'd been up early, too excited about Ethan joining their morning routine to sleep in. The drawing was of 3 stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun, one tall figure with dark scribbles for hair, one medium figure with light scribbles, and one tiny figure with curly scribbles that somehow managed to look joyful, even in crayon form. "That's us," Nia announced when Ethan knocked on the door. She held up her masterpiece proudly as Maya let him in. Ethan studied the drawing seriously, the way he always did when Nia showed him her art. "That's beautiful, Sunshine. Can I put it on my refrigerator when I get home?" Nia beamed. "Yes, but first we have to walk to school together, like a real family." The words were so matter-of-fact, so trusting, that Ethan's throat went tight. Like a real family, as if what they'd been doing for months, careful and hidden and secret, hadn't felt real to her at all. He'd brought strawberries from the fancy market down the street, the kind that cost too much but tasted like summer. Nia clapped her hands when she saw them, and Maya's smile was soft and grateful as she rinsed them in the sink. "You didn't have to," Maya said quietly. "I wanted to," Ethan replied. And it was true. After months of sneaking around, bringing strawberries to breakfast felt like the most natural thing in the world. They ate together at the little table, Nia chattering about her upcoming day at school. She had a spelling test which she was definitely going to ace, and art class, where she was going to paint a rainbow, and recess, where she was going to play on the monkey bars until her hands hurt. "Will you still be here when I get home?" she asked Ethan suddenly. The question caught him off guard. It was so hopeful and vulnerable at the same time, like she was afraid he might disappear if she didn't pin him down. "I'd like to be," Ethan said carefully. "If your mum says it's okay." Maya was quiet for a moment, refilling everyone's orange juice glasses. "We'll see how today goes," she said finally. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Ethan would take it. At 7:30, they bundled up for the walk to school. Nia insisted on wearing her favorite yellow jacket, the one that made her look like a tiny sunshine, and carried her backpack with the butterfly patches that she'd sewn on herself. The morning air was crisp and clean, with just a hint of fall coming. Leaves were starting to turn on the trees that lined the sidewalk, and somewhere nearby a dog was barking happily. It should have been perfect. But as soon as they stepped outside, Ethan felt the weight of watching eyes. Other parents walking their kids to school glanced over and whispered to each other. A woman across the street was definitely taking pictures with her phone. At the corner coffee shop, the barista pressed her face to the window to get a better look. Word had gotten out. "Is that them?" he heard someone murmur as they passed. "I saw the video online. She's so pretty." "That's his stepdaughter?" Ethan's shoulders went tense. This was exactly what he'd been afraid of. The staring, the whispers, the way their private life became public entertainment. He wanted to grab Maya's hand and pull them all back to the safety of the apartment. But then Nia skipped between them, completely oblivious to the attention they were getting. She was pointing out interesting things she saw. A pigeon with only one leg, a flower growing through a crack in the sidewalk, a fire truck racing by with its sirens wailing. "Look, Ethan," she said, tugging on his sleeve. "That cloud looks like a dragon." Ethan looked up at the sky and saw exactly what she meant. A puffy white cloud with wisps trailing behind it like wings and a tail. "You're right, Sunshine. A friendly dragon. The friendliest," Nia said seriously. "He's probably going to visit his dragon friends for breakfast." Maya caught Ethan's eye and smiled. Not the careful, protective smile she'd been wearing since last night. A real one. Warm and full of love for her daughter, who saw magic in everyday things. The school was just 2 blocks away, but to Ethan, it felt like a journey. Every step was taking them further into the world where people knew who he was, where their family would be examined and judged and photographed, but it was also taking them towards something real, something honest. As they approached the school gates, Ethan saw more parents turning to look. A few teachers stood near the entrance, and one of them, Mrs. Patterson, who Nia talked about constantly, smiled and waved. "Good morning, Nia. Did you remember your library book?" "Yes." Nia ran ahead to show off her backpack, where the book was safely tucked away. Mrs. Patterson looked up at Maya and Ethan as they followed. If she recognized Ethan from the news or social media, she didn't let it show. Her smile stayed warm and professional. "You must be Nia's stepfather," she said simply. "She talks about you all the time." The word hit Ethan like a gift. Stepfather. Not mom's boyfriend or family friend. Stepfather. Like he belonged there. "She talks about you too," Ethan said. "Thank you for being so good to her." "Nia makes it easy," Mrs. Patterson replied. "She's a joy to have in class." But even as they talked, Ethan was aware of the other conversations happening around them. Parents huddled in small groups, whispering and glancing over. A few phones appeared and disappeared. Someone across the street had a camera with a long lens pointed in their direction. Nia seemed to sense the tension. She moved closer to Ethan, pressing against his leg the way she did when she was nervous. Ethan knelt down to her level, ignoring the cameras and whispers. "Hey, Sunshine, you okay? Why is everyone looking at us?" Nia asked quietly. It was a fair question, an important question, and Nia deserved an honest answer. "Sometimes when people see someone they recognize, they get curious," Ethan said carefully. "Like when you see your favorite cartoon character at the store and you want to look. But you're not a cartoon," Nia pointed out logically. "No, but I'm on TV sometimes. And when people know you from TV, they sometimes forget that you're just a regular person too." Nia thought about this seriously. Are they being mean? No, sweetheart. They're just interested. But that doesn't mean we have to like it. Someone was definitely recording them now. Ethan could see the phone pointed in their direction, capturing this moment of him kneeling on the sidewalk, talking to a 6-year-old about fame and privacy. He should have felt angry or violated. Instead, he felt something like peace, because this was real. This moment of helping Nia understand a confusing world, this was what mattered. "I love you, Sunshine," he said quietly, just for her ears. "Don't let the staring people make you forget that, okay?" Nia threw her arms around his neck and hugged him tight. "I love you too, Daddy." There it was again, that word that made his heart stop and restart. When he stood up, Maya was watching him with eyes that were suspiciously bright. She cleared her throat and looked down at Nia. "Okay, baby girl, time for school. Have a good day, and remember, be kind, be curious, be brave," Nia recited along with her. It was their daily goodbye ritual. Nia hugged Maya, then Ethan, then skipped toward the school entrance with her backpack bouncing. She turned back once to wave, her face bright with happiness. "See you later," she called. Ethan and Maya stood together at the school gate, watching until Nia disappeared inside the building. The other parents were still watching them, but somehow it felt less important now. She's incredible, Ethan said softly. She gets that from her dad, Maya replied. Then, seeing his questioning look, she added, her first dad loved big and loud, never cared what anyone thought. She has his heart. It was the first time Maya had talked about Nia's father without sadness, like maybe there was room in their story for both the love that came before and the love that was growing now. Thank you, Ethan said, for letting me be part of this. Maya was quiet for a moment, watching the last few stragglers run through the school doors. Don't thank me yet, she said finally. Thank me tonight when the videos hit the internet and the comments start rolling in. Thank me tomorrow when your publicist shows you what the blogs are saying. Thank me next week when you're still choosing us over the easy path. Her words weren't cruel, just realistic. She was protecting herself, Ethan realized, preparing for him to change his mind when the pressure got too intense. But as they walked away from the school together, past the curious stares and pointing fingers, Ethan felt more sure than he'd felt in months. This was right. This was real. This was worth fighting for. Now he just had to prove it. Maya's living room felt smaller than usual. She sat on her worn but comfortable couch, laptop balanced on her knees, refreshing the news websites for what felt like the 100th time that morning. Each page load brought new headlines, new photos, new ways for strangers to talk about her family. The pictures from yesterday's school drop-off were everywhere now. Someone had captured the moment when Ethan knelt down to talk to Nia, and another when Nia hugged him goodbye. The photos were actually beautiful, warm and real, and full of love, but the headlines made her stomach turn. Mystery woman and child in Ethan Walsh's life. Actor's secret family revealed. Who is she? Ethan Walsh spotted with unidentified mother and daughter. Unidentified, like she was nobody. Like 6 years of being Nia's mother and 2 years of loving Ethan didn't make her real enough to have a name. Maya closed the laptop and rubbed her temples. The morning coffee that usually helped her think clearly was just making her jittery today. She needed to focus on normal things, laundry, grocery shopping, the parent-teacher conference she had scheduled for next week. But normal felt impossible when her phone kept buzzing with notifications. Her sister Tasha's name flashed on the screen. Girl, have you seen this mess? Tasha's voice was sharp with anger before Maya even said hello. Which mess specifically? Maya asked tiredly. There are so many to choose from. The one where some gossip blog is saying Ethan was seen having a romantic dinner with his co-star last week. They're making it sound like you and Nia crashed his date night. Maya's blood went cold. What? I'm sending you the link. But Maya, honey, this is exactly what I was worried about. The man won't even call you his wife. But somehow there are photos of him having candlelit dinners with other women? The link came through as a text. Maya opened it with shaking hands. The photo was grainy and taken from across a restaurant, but it was definitely Ethan. He was sitting across from Jennifer Morrison, his co-star from the movie that premiered yesterday. They were leaning across a small table, talking intently. The lighting was dim and romantic. The headline read, Ethan Walsh's Real Romance. Actor spotted on intimate dinner date. Maya stared at the photo until her eyes burned. She knew it was probably innocent. Ethan worked with Jennifer all the time. They were friends. It could have been a business meeting or just 2 colleagues grabbing dinner. But the way it looked, the way the blog was spinning it. Maya, you still there? I'm here, Maya said quietly. What are you going to do? Maya was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photo on her phone. I'm going to ask him about it. But before she could call Ethan, another text came through. This one made her heart stop completely. It was from someone she didn't recognize, but the message was clear. A photo of a legal document, contract language that made her feel sick. Artist agrees to refrain from public discussion of personal relationships, including marriage, during the promotional period, 12 months from film release. Public statements regarding family status may be subject to approval by management team. Below the contract snippet was a note. Thought you should see this. A friend at the agency. Maya stared at the words until they blurred together. A contract clause. A literal rule saying Ethan couldn't talk about being married to her. For 12 months. Her phone rang. Tasha again. Did you get that last text? Tasha's voice was furious now. Did you see what that man signed? I saw it, Maya whispered. A secret line item. He signed a paper saying he wouldn't claim you. Maya, baby, you need to wake up. This isn't about his career or protecting you from attention. This is about him being ashamed of his black wife. That's not, Maya started, but the words died in her throat, because maybe it was true. Maybe all of Ethan's talk about protecting them was just an excuse for being embarrassed about who he'd fallen in love with. "I'm coming over," Tasha said. "Don't do anything stupid while I'm driving." The line went dead, leaving Maya alone with her racing thoughts and the contract clause that felt like a knife in her chest. Ethan's hands were shaking as he sat across from his father in the quiet hotel lounge. The Carlisle was the kind of place Richard Walsh felt comfortable, all dark wood and leather chairs and the smell of old money. It was where he conducted his most important business. Today, that business was his son's career. "You're being emotional," Richard said, his voice calm and cold. "This is exactly the kind of thinking that destroys promising careers." Ethan stared down at his untouched coffee. Promising careers built on lies, built on strategy, built on understanding how this business works. Richard leaned forward, his grey eyes sharp with focus. "Do you know how many actors I've seen throw everything away for love? How many careers died because someone couldn't wait to play house? This isn't playing house, Dad. This is my family. Your family will still be your family in 12 months when your contract obligations are finished. But your career might not recover from this mess you've created." Richard pulled out his phone and showed Ethan the screen. Social media mentions of Ethan's name, thousands of them. Comments and opinions and hot takes from complete strangers about his love life. "Look at this," Richard said, scrolling through the responses. "Why was he hiding them? Is he embarrassed of his black wife? Seems shady. This is what happens when you don't control the narrative. Son." Ethan felt sick reading the comments. People were analyzing every photo, every gesture, looking for signs of shame or secret motives. They were turning his love story into a scandal. "So what do you want me to do?" Ethan asked quietly. "Lie? Pretend Maya and Naya don't exist for a year? I want you to be smart. Keep your private life private until the promotional cycle is over. Let the curiosity die down naturally. Then, when you're in a position of strength, you can reveal whatever you want." Richard signaled the waitress for another coffee, like they were discussing stock options instead of Ethan's marriage. "There's already interest from 3 major campaigns," Richard continued. "Family-friendly brands that could set you up for life. But they want clean, uncomplicated spokesmen. They don't want controversy or questions about your judgment." "My judgment?" "Rushing into marriage, hiding a relationship for years, then springing it on the public without warning, taking on someone else's child. It raises questions about stability, son, about decision-making." Each word hit Ethan like a physical blow. Someone else's child. Like Nia was a burden instead of a blessing. Like loving her was a mistake instead of the best thing he'd ever done. "She's not someone else's child," Ethan said, his voice rough with anger. "She's my daughter." Richard's face softened slightly, but not with warmth, with pity. "She's a lovely little girl, Ethan, but she's not actually your daughter, legally or biologically, and that distinction matters to sponsors who are paying millions for your image." Ethan stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Other patrons turned to look, but he didn't care. "I need to go." "Ethan, sit down. We're not finished." But Ethan was already walking away, his father's voice following him across the quiet lounge. 12 months, son. Just 12 months, and you can have everything you want." Ethan kept walking, because 12 months felt like forever when you were already drowning in lies. Sloane was waiting for him in the lobby of his apartment building, her usual calm efficiency replaced by barely controlled panic. She had her phone pressed to her ear and 3 different tablets spread across the coffee table. "I don't care what the studio wants," she was saying into the phone. "We need to get ahead of this before it spirals completely out of control." She looked up as Ethan approached, her face grim. "We have a problem," she said the moment she ended her call. "Actually, we have several problems." Ethan sank into the chair across from her. "How bad?" "The dinner photos with Jennifer are trending. Social media is convinced you were cheating on your mystery wife. Meanwhile, someone leaked your contract clause about marriage announcements, so now people think you're deliberately hiding your family because you're ashamed of them." Sloane pulled up a tablet and showed him the comments. They were worse than what his father had shown him. Angrier, more personal. "This is what happens when we don't control the story from the beginning," Sloane said. "People fill in the blanks with their own assumptions, and their assumptions are rarely kind." Ethan scrolled through the comments, each one making his chest tighter. People were calling him a coward, a fake, a man who married a black woman in private but wouldn't claim her in public. They were questioning his motives, his character, his love for Maya and Nia. And the worst part was, some of their questions felt fair. "What do you want to do?" Sloane asked. "I want to tell the truth." "The truth is complicated, Ethan. The truth is that you've been married for 2 years, but kept it secret for business reasons. The truth is that you signed a contract limiting what you could say about your personal life. The truth is that your first public appearance together was unplanned and chaotic." Sloane leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "The truth doesn't always make for good publicity. So, what's the alternative? We craft a statement, something that acknowledges Maya and Nia without going into details about timing or contracts. We frame it as a privacy choice, not a business decision. We do a few controlled interviews where you can explain your perspective without seeming defensive." It sounded reasonable, professional, safe. It also sounded like more lies dressed up as strategy. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Can we talk?" Something came up. His stomach dropped. Maya never texted like that unless something was seriously wrong. "I have to go," he said, standing up. "Ethan, we need to finalize the statement today. The network wants you back on Tonight at 8 tomorrow to clarify your comments from yesterday." Tomorrow. The follow-up interview where he could either fix this mess or make it infinitely worse. "Fine," he said. "Set it up. But I'm doing it my way." Sloane's face went pale. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm telling the truth." Maya's apartment door felt heavier than usual when she opened it for Ethan. Her face was carefully neutral, but he could see the storm in her dark eyes. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey." She stepped back to let him in. "Nia's at Tasha's for a few hours. We need to talk." The apartment was too quiet, without Nia's chatter and cartoons playing in the background. Maya's laptop was open on the coffee table, surrounded by printed articles and screenshots, evidence of the media storm that was destroying their privacy. "Maya, I know today has been... Did you have dinner with Jennifer Morrison last week?" Maya interrupted, her voice calm but sharp. Ethan's heart sank. "Yes, but at Romano's. Just the two of you. Candlelit table. It was a work meeting. She wanted to discuss the sequel possibility. Maya, you have to know I would never... I know you wouldn't cheat." Maya's voice was tired. "That's not what I'm asking about." She handed him a printed screenshot. The contract clause. Blown up and highlighted in yellow. "I'm asking about this." Ethan stared at the paper, feeling like he might throw up. "Where did you get this? Does it matter? What matters is that you signed it. You literally put your signature on a document saying you wouldn't claim me as your wife. Maya, it's just boilerplate language. It's in all entertainment contracts. I didn't even read that section carefully." "You didn't read it carefully?" Maya repeated his words slowly, like she was tasting something bitter. "A clause about whether or not you're allowed to acknowledge your wife's existence. And you didn't read it carefully." Ethan set the paper down with shaking hands. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like, Ethan? Help me understand. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you signed a contract promising to keep me secret for money, for my career, for our future, for Nia's college fund and our mortgage, and the life I want to give you both. The life you want to give us is one where we don't exist publicly for 12 months? Maya sat down across from him, her posture straight and controlled. But Ethan could see the hurt in her eyes, deep and raw and real. "I've been thinking all day," she said quietly, "trying to understand why this feels so bad when I knew you were keeping us private, and I think I figured it out." Ethan waited, afraid to hear what came next. There's a difference between choosing privacy and being legally obligated to secrecy. There's a difference between protecting your family and signing paperwork that treats your family like a liability. Each word hit him like a physical blow, because she was right. There was a difference, and he'd been too caught up in career opportunities to see it clearly. "Maya, I'm going to fix this. Tomorrow night, on television, I'm going to tell everyone exactly who you are." "Are you?" Maya's voice was soft but skeptical. "Or are you going to find another reason to wait? Another strategic delay?" Before Ethan could answer, Maya's phone rang. She glanced at it and sighed. "It's Tasha. She's probably calling to tell me she saw another article." But when Maya answered, her face went white. "What? When? Is she okay?" Ethan's heart started racing. Something had happened to Nia. "We'll be right there," Maya said, ending the call. "What happened?" Ethan asked, already grabbing his jacket. "Some photographers found Tasha's house. They were taking pictures of Nia playing in the backyard. She got scared and fell off her bike." Ethan's vision went red. Is she hurt? Scraped knee. But she's crying and asking for us. Maya was already heading for the door. This is what I was afraid of, Ethan. This is why I didn't want to be part of your world. They drove to Tasha's intense silence, both of them thinking the same thing. This was all spinning out of control. Naya's tears had dried by the time they arrived, but the scrape on her knee was angry and red. She sat on Tasha's couch with a cartoon bandage and a juice box, telling the story of the scary men with cameras who made her fall down. They were yelling questions, she said, her voice still shaky. Like the ones at the movie place, but I was just trying to ride my bike. Ethan knelt beside the couch and gently examined her bandage. Does it hurt a lot, Sunshine? Not anymore. Aunt Tasha put the special bandage on it that has butterflies. Tasha appeared in the doorway, her face tight with fury. They were hiding in the bushes across the street, taking pictures of a 6-year-old playing in her own family's backyard. I called the police, but they said as long as the photographers stayed on public property, there wasn't much they could do. Maya sank into a chair, looking defeated. This is our life now. People hiding in bushes to take pictures of our daughter. Not our daughter, Tasha corrected sharply. Naya is your daughter, his stepdaughter. But according to every news article I've read today, he's still no comment about what she means to him. Ethan looked up from Naya's bandage. That's not fair, isn't it? You had a chance to set the record straight yesterday on national television. What did you say when they asked if you were married? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Nia was watching the conversation between the adults, her young face serious and worried. I said no comment, Ethan admitted quietly. And today, when reporters called my house asking about Nia, what should I have told them? That you're basically her father? Or that you're still figuring out whether she's worth the career risk? Aunt Tasha, Nia said in a small voice. Why are you mad at Ethan? The room went quiet. Tasha's anger deflated immediately as she looked at her niece's confused face. I'm not mad at Ethan, baby girl, Tasha said gently. I'm mad at the situation. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings about complicated problems, but Naya was smart. Too smart. She looked between all the adults in the room and seemed to understand that she was part of the complicated problem. Are the camera people going to follow me to school tomorrow? She asked Maya. Maya's face crumpled for just a second before she composed herself. I don't know, sweetheart. We're going to try to make sure they don't. But you can't promise. No, Maya said honestly. I can't promise. Nia nodded seriously, like she was accepting a hard truth about the world. Then she looked at Ethan. Are you still going to be my daddy, even if the camera people are mean? The question broke something inside Ethan's chest, because she wasn't asking if he loved her. She was asking if he was brave enough to love her publicly when it got difficult. Yes, he said firmly. Always, no matter what. Okay. Nia seemed satisfied with this answer. Can we go home now? I want to show Mommy the picture I drew of us at school today. On the drive back to Maya's apartment, Nia fell asleep in her car seat, exhausted by the day's drama. In the quiet car, Maya finally said what Ethan had been dreading to hear. I need some space, Ethan. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. What does that mean? It means I need to think. About what kind of life we're building and whether it's fair to Nia. About whether you're ready to put us first, or if you're always going to be balancing us against your career. Maya, please, don't make me choose between you and everything I've worked for. I'm not making you choose anything, Maya said quietly. I'm asking you to figure out what you actually want, because right now, it feels like you want to keep us just enough to make yourself feel good, but not enough to fight for us when it gets hard. They pulled up outside Maya's building. Ethan helped carry sleeping Nia upstairs, his heart breaking with every step. This felt like an ending, even though Maya hadn't said goodbye. In Naya's bedroom, they worked together to get her into pajamas without waking her. The routine was so familiar, so domestic and normal. It felt impossible that it might be the last time. Can I see you tomorrow? Ethan asked quietly as they stood in Maya's living room. Maya was quiet for a long moment. I'll be watching your interview tomorrow night. That will tell me everything I need to know. And if I say the right things, if I claim you properly this time, then we'll talk. Maya's voice was sad but firm. But Ethan, I need you to understand something. It's not just about saying the right words anymore. It's about meaning them. It's about choosing us when it's hard, not just when it's convenient. Ethan wanted to argue, to explain all the reasons why this was more complicated than she was making it sound. But looking at her face, He realized she'd already heard all his explanations. What she needed now was action. "I love you," he said quietly. "I love you too," Maya replied. "That's why this hurts so much." The television studio felt like a trap. Ethan sat in the green room, staring at the cue cards Sloane had prepared for him, careful answers to anticipated questions, safe phrases that acknowledged Maya and Nia without providing too much detail or opening him up to follow-up questions that could cause problems. "We stick to the script," Sloane said, reviewing the cards one more time. "Acknowledge the relationship, explain that you value privacy, express your love for your family without getting into specifics about timing or legal obligations." Ethan pocketed the cards without looking at them. What if they ask about the contract clause? Sloane's face went tight. Deny knowledge of specific language. Say all contracts have boilerplate privacy provisions. Don't confirm or deny the existence of any particular clause. More lies. Strategic responses. There's a difference. But Ethan was tired of differences, tired of strategies and careful words, and the gap between what was true and what was safe to say. A production assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Walsh, you're on in 10 minutes. Sloane stood up, smoothing her blazer. "Remember, this is about damage control. We're trying to stabilize the situation, not create more drama." After she left, Ethan pulled out his phone. He opened his text messages and found the thread with Maya. "Please watch at 8, he typed. "I'm going to fix this." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, Maya's response came through. "I hope so." It wasn't much, but it was something. Maya was still willing to hope. That had to count for something. Ethan closed his eyes and tried to imagine Nia's face when she woke up tomorrow morning. Would she still be worried about the camera people? Would she still trust that he was going to be her daddy, no matter what? The production assistant knocked again. "Mr. Walsh, it's time." Ethan stood up and headed for the studio door. In a few minutes, he would be sitting across from David Chen, one of the most respected interviewers on television. Millions of people would be watching, including Maya, and probably Tasha, and definitely his father. But the only opinion that really mattered was the one belonging to a 6-year-old girl who had fallen off her bike because photographers were hiding in bushes, taking pictures of her private life. As Ethan walked onto the set, the studio lights bright and hot on his face, he made a decision that felt both terrifying and inevitable. He was going to tell the truth. All of it. David Chen was known for his calm, thoughtful interview style. He didn't ambush his guests or go for cheap gotcha moments, but he also didn't let people hide behind corporate speaking points when the audience deserved real answers. "Ethan Walsh, thank you for joining us tonight." "Thank you for having me, David." The first few minutes were easy. They talked about the movie, about working with Jennifer Morrison, about Ethan's upcoming projects. Safe territory that let both men settle into the rhythm of conversation. But Ethan could feel the real questions coming, like storm clouds on the horizon. "Now, I have to ask about the events at your movie premiere 2 nights ago," David said, his voice gentle but direct. "You arrived alone on the red carpet, but then a woman and a young girl appeared. Can you tell us who they are?" This was it, the moment everything balanced on. Ethan could feel the studio audience holding its breath. Behind the cameras, he could see Sloane watching with barely concealed panic. Somewhere in the city, Maya and Nia were watching too. "They're my family," Ethan said simply. "Your family?" "Yes. Maya Brooks is my wife. Nia is her daughter, and she's also my daughter now." David nodded encouragingly. "How long have you been married?" 2 years in December. "And you've kept this relationship private until now." Here was where Ethan was supposed to talk about valuing privacy, about protecting his family from unwanted attention. Here was where he was supposed to use the careful language Sloane had prepared. Instead, he thought about Nia's scraped knee and Maya's tired eyes and the contract clause that had made his wife feel like a secret shame. "I kept it private because I was scared," Ethan said. David's eyebrows went up slightly. This clearly wasn't the answer he'd expected. "Scared of what?" "Scared that loving Maya and Nia would hurt my career. Scared that being married to a black woman would cost me opportunities. Scared that taking on the role of stepfather would make me seem less appealing to certain audiences." The studio went completely quiet. Even David looked surprised by the raw honesty. "And do you still feel that way?" Ethan thought about his father's warnings and Sloane's strategies and all the campaign opportunities that might disappear after tonight. Then he thought about Nia asking if he would still be her daddy even when things got difficult. "No," he said firmly. I was wrong to be scared. I was wrong to let business considerations affect how I loved my family. Maya and Nia are the best parts of my life, and I'm done pretending otherwise. David leaned forward slightly. There have been reports about contractual obligations that may have prevented you from discussing your personal life. Can you address those rumors? This was the trap. The question Sloane had warned him about. The place where he could either keep lying or blow up his carefully managed career. There are clauses in entertainment contracts that discourage public discussion of personal relationships, Ethan said slowly. I signed documents that included that kind of language. And did those contractual obligations influence your decision to keep your marriage private? Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he looked directly into the camera, directly at Maya, wherever she was watching. Yes, he said quietly, they did, and that was wrong of me. My wife should never have been a contract negotiation. My family should never have been a line item in a business deal. David was quiet for a moment, clearly processing the significance of what Ethan had just admitted. What do you want to say to Maya and Nia now? Ethan looked into the camera again, his voice steady and clear. I want to say that I'm sorry. Sorry for making you feel like secrets instead of celebrating you like the gifts you are. Sorry for putting business before love. Sorry for being a coward when you deserved a man who was brave enough to claim you proudly. His voice broke slightly on the last word, but he kept going. Maya Brooks is my wife, and I'm proud to be her husband. Nia is my daughter, and I'm grateful every day that she let me into her life. They make me better than I ever was alone, and I will never hide them again. The interview continued for a few more minutes, but Ethan barely heard the remaining questions. All he could think about was whether Maya was watching, whether she believed him, whether it was too late to fix what he'd broken. When the cameras stopped rolling and David thanked him for his honesty, Ethan's phone was already buzzing with notifications, text messages and missed calls and social media alerts that he ignored completely. There was only one message that mattered, from Maya. We need to talk. This time, her words didn't sound like an ending. They sounded like a beginning. The gym was nearly empty at 6 in the morning, just the way Richard Walsh liked it when he needed to have difficult conversations. He was already on the elliptical machine when Ethan walked in, his silver hair perfectly styled even during his workout, his face set in the hard lines that meant business. Ethan didn't bother with pleasantries. He climbed onto the machine next to his father and started running like he was trying to outpace his anger. 12 million, Richard said without looking over. That's what you cost yourself last night. The Hartwell campaign pulled out at midnight, said they couldn't work with someone who shows poor judgment in crisis management. Ethan kept running, his breathing steady despite the rage building in his chest. Good, good? Richard's voice cracked with disbelief. Son, do you understand what you've done? You didn't just admit to being married. You admitted to lying about it for business reasons. You made yourself look calculating and dishonest. I made myself look human. Richard stopped his machine and turned to face Ethan directly. Human doesn't pay the bills. Human doesn't build dynasties. Human doesn't create the kind of legacy I've spent 30 years building for this family. Ethan finally stopped running too. The silence between them stretched tight as a wire. What if I don't want your legacy, Dad? Richard's face went very still. What did you just say? What if I don't want a legacy built on lies? What if I'd rather be broke and honest than rich and ashamed of the people I love? That's easy to say when you've never been broke. Richard's voice was sharp with old pain. I grew up with nothing, Ethan. Nothing. I built this life so you'd never know what that feels like. Don't throw away everything I've sacrificed because you're having feelings. For the first time, Ethan heard something other than cold calculation in his father's voice. Fear. Real fear. That his son was about to destroy everything he'd worked for. I'm not throwing anything away, Ethan said quietly. I'm choosing what matters. And what matters is a woman you've known for 2 years and a child that isn't even yours. The words hit like a slap. Ethan stepped off the machine and faced his father fully. That child calls me Daddy. That woman is my wife. They are mine, and I am theirs, and if you can't understand that, then maybe we don't have anything else to talk about. Richard stared at his son like he was looking at a stranger. You're making a mistake that will follow you for the rest of your career. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Ethan started to walk away, but his father's voice stopped him. If you keep going down this path, you're going to lose everything. The campaigns, the movie deals, the respect of this industry. Is she really worth all that? Ethan turned back one last time. Dad, she's worth everything. The coffee shop near the studio was neutral ground, public enough that Sloane wouldn't feel trapped, quiet enough for them to have a real conversation. Ethan arrived first and chose a table in the back corner, away from the morning rush of commuters, grabbing their caffeine fixes. Sloane walked in exactly on time, her professional armor slightly cracked around the edges. She looked like she hadn't slept much after last night's interview fallout. "Well," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. That was honest. Too honest? Sloane was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee with mechanical precision. "Ethan, in 12 years of managing talent, I've never had a client voluntarily torpedo their career on national television. Is that what I did? You admitted to prioritizing money over your family. You confirmed that you signed contracts limiting your ability to discuss your personal life. You basically told the world that your image was more important to you than your wife and stepdaughter." Ethan winced. Put that way, it sounded terrible. "But," Sloane continued, "you also did something I've rarely seen in this business. You told the truth when it would have been easier to lie. You chose integrity over strategy." She pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. Social media mentions of his name, thousands of them, but the tone was different from yesterday's comments. "People are responding to your honesty," she said. "They're calling you brave. They're saying they respect you for owning your mistakes." Ethan scrolled through the comments, hardly believing what he was reading. Finally, a celebrity who admits he's human. This is what accountability looks like. Respect to Ethan Walsh for choosing his family over his image. I misjudged him. This took real courage. Not all of it's positive, Sloane warned. Some people are still angry that you hid your marriage in the first place. Some think this is just another publicity stunt. But overall, the response is better than I expected. Ethan set the phone down. What does this mean for my career? Honestly, I don't know. You've broken every rule of crisis management. You've admitted to behavior that makes you look calculating. You've positioned yourself as someone who makes decisions based on emotion rather than strategy. Sloane leaned back in her chair, studying Ethan's face. But you've also shown that you can learn from mistakes, that you can put family first when it counts, that you're willing to face consequences for your choices. And sponsors care about that? Some will. The ones who value authenticity over perfection, the brands that want to associate with real people rather than manufactured images. Sloane closed her laptop and looked at Ethan directly. I can't represent you anymore. Ethan's stomach dropped. Because of last night? Because I don't know how to manage someone who prioritizes truth over image. Because my job is to protect your brand, and your brand is now honest man who makes messy human choices. That's not something I know how to package and sell. She stood up, gathering her things. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Maya and Nia are lucky to have someone willing to fight for them publicly, but I'm not the right publicist for the man you're becoming. After Sloane left, Ethan sat alone in the coffee shop for a long time. His phone kept buzzing with calls and messages, but he ignored them all. There was only one conversation that mattered now. He pulled up Maya's number and typed carefully, "Can I come over? I want to talk to you and Nia together." The response came quickly, "We're home." Maya's apartment felt different when Ethan walked in. Warmer, somehow. Like a place where truth was welcome instead of something to be managed and hidden. Nia was on the living room floor, coloring in a book with intense concentration. She looked up when she heard the door, and her face lit up with the kind of pure joy that made Ethan's chest tight with love. "Ethan!" She scrambled to her feet and ran to him. "I saw you on TV last night. You said I was your daughter." Ethan knelt down and caught her in a hug, breathing in the familiar smell of her strawberry shampoo. "I did say that, because it's true. Are you going to say it again?" "Every chance I get." Maya watched this exchange from the kitchen doorway, her face soft with cautious hope. When Nia ran back to her coloring book, Maya approached slowly. "How are you feeling?" she asked quietly. "Scared," Ethan answered honestly, "but also relieved, like I can finally breathe properly for the first time in months." Maya nodded. "I watched the interview 3 times. Tasha watched it too. What did she think?" "She said, you sounded like a man who finally figured out what he was fighting for." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Nia color a picture of what looked like a house with 3 stick figures standing in front of it. "I fired Sloane," Ethan said. "Well, she fired me. Mutual decision. How do you feel about that?" "Good. She was trying to protect an image that was never really me anyway." Maya was quiet for a moment. "What about your father?" Ethan's jaw tightened. We had words this morning. He thinks I've destroyed my career for sentiment. And what do you think? I think I finally started building a career I can be proud of. Naya looked up from her coloring book. Mommy, can Ethan stay for lunch? I want to make him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Maya glanced at Ethan. Do you want to stay for lunch? I want to stay for everything, Ethan said quietly. If you'll let me. We'll see how lunch goes first, Maya replied, but she was smiling. Lunch was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches cut into triangles, apple slices, and chocolate milk. Naya insisted on making Ethan's sandwich herself, which resulted in more peanut butter on the counter than on the bread, but Ethan declared it the best sandwich he'd ever eaten. Tell me about school yesterday, Ethan said, settling into the rhythm of normal family conversation. Did you have your spelling test? Yes, I got them all right except because I always forget the A in the middle. That's a tricky word. Even grown-ups mess it up sometimes. Do you know how to spell it? Naya asked, testing him. B-E-C-A-U-S-E. Ethan spelled carefully. That's right, Nia beamed, like he'd performed magic. Maya watched this exchange with soft eyes. These were the moments that mattered, not red carpets or interviews or publicity strategies. Just a man helping a little girl with her spelling while they ate sandwiches at a kitchen table. Can I ask you something? Maya said when Nia went to wash her hands. Anything. Last night, when you were talking about being scared, was it just about your career, or was it about us? About what it means to love a black woman and her daughter in public? Ethan had been dreading this question, but also hoping for it, because it deserved an honest answer. Both, he said quietly. I was scared about my career, but I was also scared about the things people would say about you, about Nia, about our family. What kinds of things? Ethan hesitated. Some truths were harder to say out loud than others. I was scared people would question your motives for being with me, scared they'd say horrible things about you online, scared they'd make Naya feel like she doesn't belong in my world. Maya nodded slowly. And I was scared they'd say I was only with you to look progressive, or that I was fetishizing you, or that I was using you and Nia as props for my image. These fears sounded small and selfish when he said them out loud, but Maya's expression remained thoughtful rather than judgmental. Those are real concerns, she said finally. People will say some of those things. They probably already are. Does that change how you feel about us being public? Maya was quiet for a long moment, choosing her words carefully. I've been thinking about this since the premiere, about what it costs us to hide and what it costs us to be seen, and I realized something. She turned in her chair to face him fully. Hiding doesn't actually protect us from racist comments or judgment or cruelty. It just means we face those things alone, in secret, without the support of people who love us. Ethan felt his chest tighten with understanding. But being public, Maya continued, being honest about who we are and what our family looks like, that gives other people permission to love openly too. That shows Naya that there's nothing shameful about our family, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard, because the alternative is teaching Naya that love is something to be hidden when it gets complicated. Naya came running back into the kitchen, her hands still damp from washing. Are you talking about serious grown-up stuff? She asked, climbing back into her chair. A little bit, Maya said. We're talking about our family and how much we love each other. That's not serious, Nia said matter-of-factly. That's happy, out of the mouths of babes. You're right, sunshine, Ethan said. That's very happy. His phone buzzed on the table. Another unknown number, probably another reporter or blogger wanting a statement. He ignored it. Can I ask you both something? He said. Maya and Nia both nodded. Would you like to go somewhere together tomorrow? Somewhere public, where people will probably take pictures, but where we can just be a family? Like where? Nia asked, intrigued. Like the park, or the zoo, or that ice cream place you like with the funny flavors. Naya's eyes went wide with excitement. Can we really? Even if people take pictures? Especially if people take pictures, Ethan said firmly. Because I want everyone to see how proud I am to be your daddy. Naya launched herself across the table to hug him, knocking over her empty milk glass in the process. Careful, baby girl, Maya laughed, catching the glass before it hit the floor. But she was smiling, really smiling, like maybe she was starting to believe that this could work. That afternoon, they went for a walk around Maya's neighborhood, nothing fancy or planned, just three people who loved each other taking a stroll on a beautiful day. People noticed. Of course they did. Phones came out, pictures were taken, but somehow it felt different than the chaos of the premiere. Maybe because this time, Ethan wasn't trying to hide or manage the situation. He was just holding Nia's hand while she pointed out interesting dogs and flowers. When they passed a small group of teenagers who clearly recognized him, one of them called out, "Hey, we saw your interview. That was really cool what you said about your family." Ethan waved back, feeling something like pride settle in his chest. "See?" Maya said quietly. "Not everyone is cruel. Not everyone," Ethan agreed. That evening, after Nia had been read to and tucked in and kissed goodnight by both of them, Ethan and Maya sat on the couch with a shared bowl of popcorn and watched a movie neither of them paid much attention to. "So what happens now?" Maya asked during a quiet moment. "Now I figure out how to build a career that includes you instead of hiding you. Now I learn to be the kind of man who deserves the family he's been given." Maya curled up against his side, her head on his shoulder. "And if it's hard, if the backlash gets worse, if you lose opportunities because of us, then it's hard," Ethan said simply. "But we'll be hard together." Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I love you. I love you too. All of you. Even the parts that make mistakes." Ethan kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "Especially the parts that make mistakes," he said. "Those are the parts that are learning to be better." The knock on the door came at 7:30 the next evening. Ethan was helping Nia with a puzzle while Maya finished cleaning up after dinner. None of them were expecting company. Maya looked through the peephole and froze. "It's your father," she said quietly. Ethan's stomach dropped. Richard Walsh standing on Maya's doorstep could only mean one thing: damage control. His father had come to fix what he saw as Ethan's catastrophic mistake. "You don't have to let him in," Ethan said. "Yes, I do," Maya replied, her voice calm but determined. "He's your father, and if we're going to do this, really do this, then we need to face whatever comes." She opened the door with quiet dignity. Richard stood in the hallway holding a small bouquet of flowers that looked awkward in his manicured hands. His usual confidence seemed shaken, replaced by something that might have been nervousness. "Mrs. Brooks," he said formally, "I was hoping we could talk." "Of course. Please come in." Richard stepped inside, taking in the modest but warm apartment. His eyes found the photos on the mantel, Maya and Nia at the beach, Ethan making pancakes in this very kitchen, the three of them at Nia's school play. "These are lovely," he said, and seemed to mean it. Nia looked up from her puzzle and studied this new visitor with the serious attention she gave all adults who entered her space. "Are you Ethan's daddy?" she asked. Richard's composure cracked slightly. "I am. I'm Nia. I'm Ethan's daughter too. Kind of. Kind of. Well, he's my stepdaddy, but that's the same as daddy, except with more steps," Nia explained, with 6-year-old logic. Despite everything, Richard smiled. "That makes sense." Maya invited him to sit at the kitchen table, the same place where Ethan had eaten peanut butter sandwiches just yesterday. She offered coffee, which he accepted gratefully. "I owe you an apology," Richard said without preamble. "Several apologies, actually." Maya waited, her hands folded calmly in her lap. "I called your daughter someone else's child yesterday. That was cruel and wrong. She's clearly Ethan's daughter in every way that matters." Nia beamed at this acknowledgement, then went back to her puzzle. "I also treated your marriage like a business problem to be solved, rather than a relationship to be respected." "That was wrong too." "Why are you here, Mr. Walsh?" Maya asked gently. Richard was quiet for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "Because I realized something today. I've spent so many years protecting Ethan's career that I forgot to protect Ethan's happiness. And watching him on television the other night, I haven't seen him that alive in years." He turned to look at Ethan, who had been listening quietly from the living room. "You were right yesterday, about choosing what matters. I just forgot that people matter more than campaigns." "Dad," Ethan started, but Richard held up his hand. "Let me finish. I built my reputation on creating perfect images for imperfect people. But perfection is boring, and more importantly, it's not real." He looked back at Maya and Nia. "This is real. This family, this love, this life you've built together. It's messy and complicated and beautiful, and I'm sorry I tried to hide it." Nia abandoned her puzzle and walked over to Richard's chair. "Do you want to help me finish my puzzle?" she asked. "It's a picture of a rainbow, but some of the pieces are really hard." Richard looked down at this small person offering to share her difficult puzzle with him, and something in his face completely softened. "I would like that very much," he said. As they worked on the rainbow together, Richard asked Nia about school and her favorite colors and whether she liked movies. Normal grandfather questions that he'd never had the chance to ask before. "You know," he said as they found the final piece, "if you want, you could call me Granddad, if that's okay with your mom and Ethan." Nia looked to Maya, who nodded with tears in her eyes. "Granddad," Nia said, testing the word. Then she giggled. "That sounds funny. Granddad, it sounds perfect to me," Richard said quietly. Later, after Nia had gone to bed and Richard was getting ready to leave, he pulled Ethan aside. "I got 7 calls today from executives who want to work with you because of that interview," he said. "Apparently, honesty is good for business after all. I don't care about the business anymore, Dad. I know. That's what makes you valuable." Richard hugged his son, really hugged him, not the formal handshake they usually shared. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Not because of your career or your contracts or your image. I'm proud because you chose love over fear. That takes more courage than anything I ever taught you." As Richard walked away down the hallway, Maya slipped her hand into Ethan's. "Think he meant it?" she asked. "Yeah," Ethan said, watching his father disappear around the corner. "I think he did." They stood in the doorway for a moment, feeling the weight of forgiveness and new beginnings. "So," Maya said finally, "ready to face tomorrow?" Tomorrow would bring more interviews, more questions, more challenges. There would be people who supported them and people who didn't. There would be opportunities lost and others gained. There would be moments when loving publicly felt hard and moments when it felt like the most natural thing in the world. But tonight, they were just a family standing in their doorway, looking forward together. "With you?" Ethan said, squeezing Maya's hand. "I'm ready for anything." 2 days later, the closing night of the film festival arrived like a test they were finally ready to take. Ethan stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie for the 3rd time. Through the open door, he could hear Maya and Nia getting ready in the bedroom, their voices mixing with laughter as they helped each other with shoes and hair clips. It was such a normal sound, such a beautiful sound, the sound of family preparing for something together instead of him getting ready alone while they stayed home and waited. "Ethan," Nia's voice called from the bedroom. "Come see Mommy's dress." He walked into the bedroom and stopped in his tracks. Maya stood in front of the full-length mirror, smoothing the fabric of a deep emerald dress that made her dark skin glow. Her hair was swept up in an elegant twist, and she wore the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her. She was absolutely stunning. But more than that, she looked confident, ready, like a woman who knew she belonged wherever she was going. "You're beautiful," Ethan said softly. Maya smiled, but there was still a hint of nervousness in her eyes. "Are you sure about this? Walking the red carpet together? All the way this time?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Nia appeared at Maya's side, wearing a navy blue dress with silver stars that made her look like a little constellation. "Are there going to be a lot of cameras again?" "Probably," Ethan said honestly. "But this time, we're ready for them. And this time, I'm not going to let anyone make you feel like you don't belong there." Nia considered this seriously. "What if they ask me questions? Then you can answer them if you want to, or you can say, 'No, thank you,' if you don't. It's your choice." "What if someone says something mean?" Ethan knelt down to her level. "Then we remember that mean people usually say mean things because they're hurting inside. It's not about us, it's about them. And we don't have to carry their hurt around with us." Nia nodded solemnly, processing this wisdom. Then she brightened. "Can I wear my new shoes with the sparkles?" "You can wear whatever makes you feel happy and confident," Maya said, helping Nia with the strappy sandals that caught the light when she moved. As they got ready to leave, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from his father. "Break a leg tonight, all 3 of you. Love, Dad, Granddad." Ethan showed the message to Maya, who smiled softly. "He's really trying," she said. "He really is." The car service was waiting outside Maya's building. As they climbed in, Ethan felt none of the anxiety that had plagued him for months. No worry about who might see them, no planning of strategic separations or careful image management. Just a man going to a work event with his wife and daughter, the way it should have been all along. The red carpet at the festival's closing ceremony was longer and more elaborate than the premiere had been. Hundreds of photographers lined the barriers, and entertainment reporters stood ready with microphones and questions. But this time, Ethan didn't approach it alone. He stepped out of the car first, then turned to help Maya out. She took his offered hand with grace, stepping onto the red carpet like she'd been doing it all her life. When Nia climbed out after them, She immediately reached for both their hands. The three of them stood together for a moment, adjusting to the lights and noise. Then Ethan looked down at his girls. "Ready?" "Ready," Maya said firmly. "Ready," Nia said with 6-year-old enthusiasm. They walked forward together. The photographers went wild, but it felt different than the chaos of the premiere. More controlled, more respectful, like the world had adjusted to the reality of their family existing in public. "Ethan, over here." "Maya, how are you feeling tonight?" "Nia, you look beautiful." They posed for photos, Maya's hand resting naturally on Ethan's arm, while Nia stood in front of them, beaming at all the cameras. When one photographer asked them to look serious, Nia made such a dramatically serious face that all three of them burst into laughter. The photo of that moment, all of them laughing together, completely natural and unguarded, would end up on the front page of 3 major newspapers the next day. Tom from Entertainment Weekly approached them with his familiar recorder. "Ethan, last time we talked, you weren't ready to discuss your personal life. Things have certainly changed." "They have," Ethan agreed. "Tom, I'd like you to meet my wife, Maya Brooks, and my daughter, Nia." The words came out so easily now. Wife, daughter. No hesitation, no careful phrasing. Just the truth, simple and clean. "Maya, how does it feel to finally be acknowledged publicly?" Maya's smile was warm but had an edge of steel underneath. "It feels like coming home to ourselves," she said. "Like we can finally stop pretending to be smaller than we are." "And Nia, are you excited to be here tonight?" Nia looked up at the reporter with serious consideration. "Yes, but I'm more excited about ice cream after. Ethan promised we could go to the place with the weird flavors." The reporter laughed. "What's your favorite weird flavor?" "Lavender honey," Nia said confidently. "Most people think it sounds gross, but it tastes like flowers in the best way." As they continued down the carpet, stopping for more photos and brief interviews, Ethan marveled at how natural it all felt. Maya handled the questions with thoughtful grace, never saying more than she wanted to, but never seeming uncomfortable. Nia charmed everyone she met with her honest observations and lack of pretense. They were good at this, good at being a family in public, good at representing themselves with dignity and warmth. Near the end of the carpet, a young black girl who couldn't have been more than 10 years old managed to catch Maya's attention from behind the barriers. "Mrs. Maya," she called out, "you're so pretty. Are you really married to Ethan Walsh?" Maya stopped and walked over to the barrier, crouching down to the girl's level. "I am," she said gently. "What's your name?" "Zara. My mom says you're brave for loving whoever you want, even if people have opinions about it." Maya's eyes went bright with tears. "Your mom sounds very smart. What do you think?" "I think love is love," Zara said matter-of-factly. "And I think your daughter is lucky to have parents who aren't scared of cameras." Maya looked back at Nia, who had noticed the conversation and skipped over to join them. "Hi," Nia said to Zara. "I like your hair clips." "Thanks. I like your dress. Want to see how it twirls?" Nia did a little spin, making the stars on her dress catch the light. Zara clapped with delight. "That's so cool." Maya stood up and found Ethan watching the exchange with soft eyes. "This," she said quietly, "this is why it mattered. So little girls like them can see families like ours existing without shame." Ethan squeezed her hand. "I get it now, finally." The ceremony itself was beautiful, but less important than the journey to get there. Ethan's movie won an award for cinematography, and when the director thanked the cast during his acceptance speech, he made a point of mentioning Ethan Walsh and his beautiful family in the audience. Nia clapped so hard her hands turned red. After the show, they went to the official after-party for exactly 30 minutes, long enough to be gracious, short enough to avoid the chaos that always came later in the evening when people had too much champagne and photographers got pushy. "Ready for that ice cream?" Ethan asked as they said their goodbyes. "More than ready," Maya said, slipping her heels off and carrying them in her hand. "My feet are killing me." "Can we walk?" Nia asked. "I want to see the city lights." So they walked through Manhattan at 10 o'clock at night, a man in a tuxedo, a woman in an evening gown carrying her shoes, and a 6-year-old in a starry dress pointing out interesting things she saw along the way. A few people recognized them and smiled. One couple asked for a selfie, which they took happily. A group of teenagers called out, "Congrats on the movie," as they passed. But mostly, they were just a family walking to get ice cream on a beautiful night. The shop was still open, run by an elderly Italian man who made flavors that sounded impossible but somehow worked perfectly. Lavender honey, as Nia had promised, rosemary olive oil, black sesame with white chocolate chips. Ethan got coffee cardamom. Maya chose strawberry basil. Nia stuck with her beloved lavender honey. They sat at a small table in the back corner, evening clothes and all, eating ice cream and talking about everything except the cameras and interviews and industry politics. "Tell me about your art project at school," Ethan said to Nia. "Oh, we're making a book about families. Everyone has to draw their family and write about what makes them special." "What are you going to write about us?" Maya asked. Nia thought carefully, taking a big spoonful of purple ice cream. "I'm going to write that we're the kind of family that eats ice cream in fancy clothes, and that my daddy is famous but still helps me with my homework." "That sounds perfect," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'm going to write that my mummy is the strongest person I know, and that she taught me that love is worth fighting for, even when it's scary." Maya reached over and smoothed Nia's curly hair. "Where did you learn to be so wise?" "From you," Nia said simply. "And from Ethan. And from watching you two figure out how to be brave together." The next morning brought a flood of coverage, but it was different than the frantic speculation of the premiere week. The headlines were warmer, more respectful. "Ethan Walsh and family shine at festival closing. A love story finds its light." Maya Brooks. The grace and strength behind the headlines. Ethan's phone rang while he was making coffee in Maya's kitchen. His agent calling with news. "3 offers came in this morning," Sarah said, her voice bright with excitement. All of them specifically mentioned wanting to work with the authentic Ethan Walsh and the man brave enough to choose family over image. "What kind of offers?" "Family drama for Netflix, romantic comedy for Warner, and here's the interesting one, a campaign for a family-oriented brand that wants to celebrate real modern families. They specifically want you, Maya, and Nia." Ethan nearly dropped his coffee mug. "All of us? All of you. Apparently, authenticity is very marketable these days." After Sarah hung up, Ethan sat at Maya's kitchen table feeling stunned. Not only had his honesty not destroyed his career, it had opened doors he never could have imagined. Maya appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing one of his old t-shirts and a pair of sleep shorts, her hair in a messy bun. She looked more beautiful than she had in the designer gown last night. "Good news?" she asked, noting his expression. "The best news. Want to hear about it over pancakes?" "Always." They cooked breakfast together while Nia slept in, moving around each other in the small kitchen with the easy rhythm of two people who had found their groove. Maya mixed the batter while Ethan handled the griddle. She added chocolate chips to Nia's portion while he flipped them at just the right moment. When Nia finally wandered out of her bedroom, rubbing her eyes and trailing her favorite stuffed elephant, she found them dancing to music from Maya's phone while they waited for the last batch to finish cooking. "Are you being silly without me?" she asked with mock indignation. "Never," Maya said, scooping Nia up and spinning her around. "We were waiting for you to make it a proper dance party." They ate breakfast with the kind of easy chatter that marked Sunday mornings in families everywhere. Nia told them about her friend Marcus, who had lost another tooth. Maya mentioned needing to grocery shop. Ethan talked about the script he was reading for a potential project. Normal family conversations, the kind they'd had for months in private, but now there was no weight of secrecy hanging over them, no careful planning of when he could come and go, no fear that someone might see him leaving in the morning. After breakfast, Nia dragged them both to the living room to show them the book she was making about their family. She had drawn pictures of all their important moments, the first time Ethan helped her ride her bike, the 3 of them baking cookies, movie nights on the couch. The last drawing was from last night, 3 stick figures on a red carpet, all holding hands under a smiling sun. "This one's my favorite," she said, "because we look happy and fancy at the same time." "Can I keep this one?" Ethan asked. "For my refrigerator?" Nia considered this seriously. "You can keep a copy, but the original has to stay here because this is my family book." "Fair enough." Maya disappeared into her bedroom and came back with a small digital camera. "Photo shoot time," she announced. "We need pictures of this historic day when Ethan Walsh finally has something decent to put on his refrigerator." They took dozens of pictures. Silly ones where they all made faces, sweet ones where they piled together on the couch, candid ones of Nia explaining her drawings with serious concentration. The best one was completely accidental. Maya had been trying to get a shot of Ethan and Nia reading together, But the camera went off just as Nia said something that made them all burst into laughter. Their faces were bright with joy, caught in a moment of pure family happiness. "That's the one," Maya said, looking at the camera display. "That's going on the fridge." That evening, as the sun was setting and painting Maya's living room in golden light, they sat together on the couch, planning their week. Normal things: Naya's parent-teacher conference, grocery shopping, a potential dinner with Tasha and her family. "What about next weekend?" Maya asked. "Want to try going to the park, just to see how it feels to be normal people in public? Can we bring a picnic?" Naya asked. "With those sandwiches that look like flowers?" "Absolutely," Ethan said. "We can bring whatever kind of sandwiches you want." As they talked, Ethan realized this was what happiness looked like. Not red carpets or award shows or magazine covers. Just three people who loved each other, making plans for ordinary adventures. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. A photo from the newspaper, the one of them laughing on the red carpet with the message, "Frame-worthy. Love, Grandad." "Your dad's really embracing the grandfather thing," Maya observed, reading over his shoulder. "He's making up for lost time," Ethan replied. "Speaking of which, he wants to take Nia to see a movie next weekend. Something about granddads being required to spoil their granddaughters with popcorn and candy." "Can he?" Nia asked hopefully. "Granddad seems like he would be good at picking movies." "We'll see," Maya said, but she was smiling. As they settled in to watch a movie together, Nia curled between them on the couch. Ethan felt a deep sense of peace, the kind of peace that came from finally living in alignment with your values, from choosing love over fear, truth over image, family over everything else that pretended to matter but didn't really. "I love you both," he said quietly, not caring that it was the middle of a movie and probably not the right moment for declarations. "We love you too," Maya replied without looking away from the screen, like loving him was as natural as breathing. "Even when you're interrupting movies to be mushy," Nia added solemnly, making Maya laugh. Late that night, after Nia had been tucked into bed with stories and songs and the kind of elaborate goodnight routine that made being 6 years old feel safe and special, Maya and Nia worked together to hang the photo on the refrigerator. It was a small gesture, but it felt enormous. The picture of their laughter, their joy, their family happiness, displayed proudly in the heart of the home. Maya stepped back to admire their work. Perfect. Ethan stood behind her, his arms around her waist, looking at the photo that captured everything they'd fought to protect and everything they'd almost lost. "I should have put a picture of us up here 2 years ago," he said quietly. "You weren't ready 2 years ago," Maya replied, leaning back against his chest. "You needed to figure out who you wanted to be before you could be it publicly. And now?" Maya turned in his arms to face him. "Now you're the man who chooses us every day, who fights for us when it's hard and celebrates with us when it's easy, who helps our daughter with her homework and dances with me in the kitchen and isn't afraid to be seen loving us. I want to keep being that man." "Then do," Maya said simply. "Keep choosing us, keep choosing truth, keep choosing love, even when it's complicated." Ethan kissed her then, soft and sweet in the quiet kitchen, with their daughter sleeping safely down the hall and their happiness displayed proudly on the refrigerator. Outside, the city continued its never-ending bustle. Somewhere, people were probably still discussing their red carpet appearance, analyzing their interviews, having opinions about their family. But inside Maya's apartment, their home now, really and truly all of that noise faded away. What remained was what had always been real, a man and a woman who loved each other, a little girl who had made them both better people, and a family that had finally found its way into the light. The refrigerator hummed quietly in the corner, displaying their joy for anyone who cared to see it. 3 faces bright with laughter, caught in a moment of pure love. It wasn't a perfect picture. Maya's hair was slightly mussed from the wind, Ethan's tie was a little crooked, and Nia had ice cream on her chin. But it was real, it was theirs, and it was beautiful precisely because it wasn't perfect. In the morning, there would be new challenges, more opportunities to choose love over fear, truth over convenience, family over everything else. There would be people who supported them and people who didn't, projects that welcomed their authenticity and others that preferred artificial perfection. But tonight, as they turned off the kitchen lights and headed to bed together, they knew they had something that couldn't be manufactured or managed or packaged for public consumption. They had each other. They had the truth. They had love that was strong enough to stand in the light. And sometimes that was everything. 6 months later, Naya's drawing still hung on the refrigerator, but it had been joined by others: school photos and doctor appointment reminders, a grocery list in Maya's handwriting, a note from Ethan's agent about a new project, a postcard from Richard, who had gone on a cruise and sent it to his favorite granddaughter and her wonderful parents. Normal family clutter. Beautiful, everyday evidence of a life lived together without hiding. The movie had done well. Ethan's follow-up projects were even better. Maya had started a blog about parenting and authenticity that was gaining a devoted following. Naya had learned to ride her bike without training wheels and had started taking art classes where she painted rainbows that looked increasingly like actual rainbows. They still got attention when they went out together. People still took pictures and asked questions and had opinions about their family, but it felt manageable now, part of the texture of their life rather than a crisis to be managed. On this particular Saturday morning, they were getting ready for Naya's art show at school, where all the family projects would be displayed. Naya was nervous about whether her book about families was good enough, but excited for Ethan and Maya to see it alongside everyone else's work. "Do I look okay?" she asked, smoothing her yellow dress, the same one she'd worn to the movie premiere, now her official special occasion dress. "You look perfect," Ethan said, straightening her butterfly hair clips. "But more importantly, how do you feel?" "Proud," Nia said without hesitation. "I'm proud of my family book, because it's about true things." Maya caught Ethan's eye in the mirror and smiled. True things. Yes, that was exactly what they had built together, a family based on true things. As they walked to the school together, Nia skipping between them and chattering about which of her friends would be there, Ethan felt the same sense of rightness that had been growing stronger every day for the past 6 months. This was his life. Not the careful, calculated existence he'd tried to construct, but this messy, joyful, real life with people who loved him exactly as he was. At the school, they admired Naya's family book alongside projects about single parents and grandparents, raising grandchildren and families with 2 mums, and families with deployed military fathers. All kinds of families, all kinds of love, all presented with the same pride and acceptance. "Look," Nia whispered, pointing to her book where it was displayed with the others. "Mine fits right in." And it did. Their story, the movie star and the single mom and the little girl who made them all family, belonged right there with all the other true stories of how people chose to love each other. After the art show, they went for ice cream at their regular place. Naya got her lavender honey. Maya tried something new, rose petal with dark chocolate. Ethan stuck with coffee cardamom because some things were perfect the way they were. "What should we do with the rest of our Saturday?" Maya asked, licking ice cream off her spoon. "Can we go to the park and feed the ducks?" Nia asked. "And maybe take some pictures for Grandad?" "Absolutely," Ethan said. "But first, I have something for both of you." He pulled out 2 small wrapped packages from his jacket pocket. Maya and Nia opened them curiously. Inside each box was a delicate gold necklace. Maya's had a small heart pendant. Nia's had a star. "They're beautiful," Maya said softly. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. Just, I saw them and thought about how you two are the heart and star of everything good in my life, and I wanted you to have something that reminded you of that." Naya immediately put her necklace on, admiring how the star caught the light. "It's like the stars on my dress." Maya's eyes were bright with tears as Ethan fastened her necklace. "I love it. I love you. I love you too, both of you. Every single day more than the day before." They sat in the ice cream shop for another hour, talking and laughing and planning their afternoon. Just a family on a Saturday, wearing their love openly and proudly. When they finally left, walking hand in hand toward the park where they would feed ducks and take pictures and make more ordinary precious memories, they passed a newsstand where Ethan's face smiled back at them from a magazine cover. "Ethan Walsh, How Honesty Saved My Career and My Marriage," the headline read. "Look, there's Daddy," Nia pointed excitedly. "Very handsome," Maya said, grinning at Ethan. "But I think I like the real version better." "Good," Ethan said, squeezing her hand, "because the real version is the only one you get." As they walked toward their afternoon adventure, the spring sunshine warm on their faces and their love visible to anyone who cared to look, they carried with them the quiet satisfaction of people who had fought for what mattered and won. Not because the path had been easy, it hadn't been. Not because everyone had understood or approved, they hadn't. But because they had chosen truth over comfort, love over fear, and each other over everything else the world tried to convince them was more important. In the end, that choice had made all the difference. On Naya's refrigerator drawing, the three stick figures still held hands under their bright yellow sun. But now, 6 months later, they knew something the artist hadn't known when she first put crayon to paper. Sometimes the sun shone brightest after you'd been brave enough to step out of the shadows and stand together in its light.